Welcome into Power Plays presented by Bet365. I'm Tim Kalinowski, joined by Nick Martin. The two of us plus one more, Michael Leboff. We make up Line Change, Action Network's NHL betting podcast. Leboff, it's a maintenance day for him, a little scheduled day off. This time of year, everyone, they need their rest. And, also too, as big of an Islanders fan as he is, and thus an anti-Rangers guy, maybe he just should recuse himself for the rest of the playoffs. I think, I don't know if he can be impartial here, but that's not even the game that we have lined up here, Nick. It's just one game for Saturday. Obviously, we'll have a game Sunday, but we don't have a line yet. Is it going to be Sunday with that Eastern Conference game? I don't know. Regardless, I'm going a day at a time. It's the Oilers playing the Stars, game 2 here. The Oilers Dallas is a minus 140 favorite. The Oilers plus 120, and then the total here is sitting at 5.5, juiced to the over. Nick, this seems pretty fair to me. And I know that's not a great way to start a video, but just what we saw in a double overtime game, tight game, the Oilers 3 stars score, Hyman, Draisaitl, McDavid all get one. What can we expect for game 2?
Yeah, I think we're going to see the Stars play a better game. I liked the Oilers, the prop that we gave out on Line Change, Oilers to win game 1 and lose the series. I thought that really was their best chance to strike. We kind of see these game 1s often, that especially late in the playoffs, that aren't necessarily going to dictate the way the entire series is going to go. I think that the Oilers fully deserve to win that game. I think if anything, they probably even got a tough whistle, and they still found a way to get it done. But I also think it seemed pretty clear that the Stars were pretty flat. I felt like, not to discredit the Oilers for a really good win, but it did seem, and they've done this in every series really, that Stars game 1 trend just continues to be a problem for them. I didn't think they're at their best. I thought a lot of their depth guys, I don't know if we're going to see the Oilers depth guys able to continue shutting down some of those Stars pieces. We were laughing around here, reading some of the Oilers media takes, who were very vocal after the game, talking about how the depth matchup was really overblown. But I also think that that's one game, right? I think that if you're talking about last series, you could sit here and say, based off game 5, McDavid and Draisaitl are worse than Miller and Lindholm, or whatever you want. Whatever extreme takes you can base off one game. So I like the Stars' chances heading into the series. I don't think game 1 necessarily discounted too much for me. I thought that it was possible Skinner could build on game 6 and game 7, and he did. But other than that, I think we should feel confident the Stars can bounce back. And the other thing that could potentially work in their favor, we'll see if Hintz comes back. That would be a big news for them. So at minus 140, I think it's worth a small play on the Stars. I'm with you, though. I think these lines look fairly sharp, so that play kind of just revolves around me thinking that the Stars are going to find a way. It's not like I'm sitting here saying it's like an absurd number at all, which is, typically where I'll start my handicap. But yeah, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page here, and I think if you are, if your gut was that Dallas was going to win this series, and part of your handicap was because of the depth, I would say, well, that doesn't really show itself maybe in game 1. It's more of as the series goes on, and especially after a double overtime game, you would hope that only, opens the door for Dallas to utilize their depth. And if you are going to play the Stars, I'd probably say too, I see all the time that Bet365 has, one of those promotions or boosts or whatever, where you can get a team up by 3 goals, you get the early win. And with a team like Edmonton that can come back like crazy, I think that's the good option there, and why Bet365 is the place for that. And I did a little research on games that went into overtime or deep in overtime and how the total fared in the next game, because, we would think tired legs, or does that lead to more or less scoring? And I'll report back on my research after I give you an ad. We call that a tease. Nick, in the business, Power Plays is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only, or 18 plus in Kentucky and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, and now North Carolina. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Colorado, Indiana, Kentucky, Louisiana, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. T's and C's and restrictions apply. It's a Memorial Day weekend here in the States, Nick. There's the Indy 500, Coke 600, Monaco Grand Prix, a lot going on. So make sure you're betting with those guys over at Bet365. Like I said, Nick, I did a little research on games that went to overtime, and since 2017, the 2017 playoffs, I took out the bubble playoffs because they were playing some back-to-backs in there as well, and it was kind of weird. So I narrowed it to games that played 10 plus minutes of overtime to about 30 plus minutes of overtime, because this game it ended in the second overtime, but it was early in the second overtime. So that was kind of the qualifier there. And I saw that the next game, shockingly, Nick, 18 overs, 17 unders, and 3 pushes. So that doesn't really help us there. But then I said, well, what if that game that went into overtime, what if it was also an under or a push in that game? And this was an under scenario. So what happened in the next game? 6 overs, 11 unders, 3 pushes. And again, it's everything's different, right? Because some of these were scenarios where teams had actually played 2 overtime games in the previous series, so or in the leading up to that. So it's not perfect, but with that, I think I'm going to go with the over in this game, Nick, and it's because I'll start it with Dallas going 0 for 5 on the power play in game 1, and I just don't see that continuing. And I see Edmonton going 0 for 1 on the power play, only getting 1 chance. I feel like if they get more than 1 chance, we're getting an easy one here. And we ticked down from 6 to 5.5 going to game 1 to 2. If I had to play it, and I think I will play this, the over is where I land, Nick.
Yeah, and I think the other trend that kind of works in that favor and also supports the Dallas take is that we have really consistently seen teams coming out of a game 7 facing a rested opponent fare really well. Since 2005, teams in that situation it's 21-17 now, correct? And typically, since they're just coming out of game 7 versus a rested team, that usually means they're always the underdog anyways. So they're actually, by return on investment, performing even better than you'd expect based on that record. They're up around 15%. So it has actually been pretty consistent that in the rest versus rust debate, the teams kind of coming out of game 7 have been sharper. And it felt like that stat really went in line with what we saw in game 1. You could see the Oilers were far better early on, and then felt like overtime and obviously the third could have gone either way. So I think we could see a really similar thing from the Stars here. They were able to bounce back versus really good teams in Vegas and Colorado after game 1 losses. So I think that's works in favor of our over and our Stars plays here. And I'm deep in on the Stars this year, so keep that in mind if you're like us and you got all kinds of Stars positions. But I think in this game they're worthy of bet.
We do. We have all sorts of Stars positions. And so I'll say, I think the game script too, if you think Dallas is going to win, take a lead, I think that helps the over, because Edmonton getting starting to cheat up the ice a little bit more helps you with the variance of an over game. So I think that's important as well. And the line says that obviously Dallas is favored here. So I like where we're at. And we kind of just built the same game parlay while we were at it. I mean, Dallas, the over, and I think we just throw in like a Heiskanen point and you got yourself a little Saturday night same game parlay. So I'll give that a little bite too as well, Nick.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? The other piece that you could put in there, I'm close on it. I'm waiting to see if maybe the number gets better. I played this and lost in heartbreaking fashion the other night. Is McDavid to go under 3.5 shots? He's not shooting this playoffs. He won't take bad shots. And generally, he's not left with other opportunities. So it feels like it's been really consistent that he's just driving down the walls, pulling up, finding a play, whatever it is. Even on the power play, he's really not shooting either. So it feels like even that number is being held up because of who he is, but he's really not shooting. He got 4 the other night, but 2 of them were in overtime. And so I think that, I don't know if I love it I do think probably should be even longer than -175, but I didn't necessarily want to give it out. So maybe you throw that in there if you're doing an SGP, maybe if they do their 30% boost on this game.
Yeah, it's a piece. It's a piece. I like it, Nick. We showed out well today. We're missing Lieboff. We dug deep. One game, a tight game that went to overtime. So I think we did our best here. Leans on Dallas for sure. Half unit over, half unit, and built you a nice little same game parlay if that's what you're interested in. The three of us will be back together next week for Line Change. Hope you enjoy your weekend, especially in the States, the long weekend. Remember that Power Plays is presented by Bet365. Enjoy, everybody. Be safe.